Grüezi. Is Switzerland going to be the next country that's going to add Bitcoin? I'm going to give you a few reasons as to why that makes sense in this video. We in Switzerland are known for three things: our delicious chocolate, being punctual, whether that be with our Swiss watches or our trains, take a note, Deutsche Bahn, and of course, the banking and finance world. In the past, Switzerland has established itself as a financial hub. For a relatively small country, we've had connections into every major financial market in the world. However, the last few years, the Swiss franc, just like every other fiat currency, has been suffering. This is mainly due because fiat currencies in the end tend to inflate away. We've seen this with record inflation. And because most of these currencies are not backed by hard assets such as gold or silver. There are a few options for the Swiss National Bank to counteract this. One would be to get back on a gold standard. That'd be the easiest option because they've done it before. And on the other hand, they had to invest. They did invest in equities such as Meta and Tesla, at one point holding more than asset managers such as BlackRock. However, that really didn't turn out well, and these days the National Bank is more plagued by negative headlines such as "Where were you?" and "Why did you help out Credit Suisse when they went bust?" and "Hey, why did you have so many losses 2 years ago on your balance sheet?" So they would clearly need an asset that's scarce in its unity and on the other end enables you to use it as a reserve currency. What's the best asset to do this? Bingo, Bitcoin, of course. And we've seen that growing trend with nation states and central banks or national banks to use Bitcoin as a strategic reserve currency. But what would make sense for Switzerland to adopt Bitcoin? There are 5 reasons. Reason number 1 would be financial neutrality. See, Switzerland is known for being neutral both on the political spectrum and with the Swiss franc, who's always been a currency that's been appreciated by every market in the world. And on the other hand, because of this hardness in quotation marks here, again, all fiat currencies tend to inflate away, we then had the possibility to position ourselves very neutral due to our constitutions in politics as well, and really use both pillars to the small country's advantage. Bitcoin being the most neutral form of money on earth because there is no central entity, there is no one controlling it, everyone can use that, would actually amplify the lost stance we have in Switzerland and would give us a boost again to A, secure the political standness, I'll go into that in a second step, and B, to also start increasing the value of the franc itself. The second step is what I mentioned before, and that is the diversification of national reserves. As I've mentioned, the National Bank had to intervene, and because the Swiss franc was losing purchasing power quickly, they had to find other avenues to invest in and counterbalance that move. They did so with Meta and Tesla. That worked for a few months, but ever since then the stock's been plummeting. The National Bank actually recorded a huge loss in 2022. And since then, they had to find other avenues. They also started buying gold again, and they still continue to invest into certain equities in the markets. Running a national bank like a hedge fund is not really a smart business deal. So having Bitcoin on your balance sheet as a national reserve currency, and by the way, there's already an initiative for this out there, you would have the possibilities to get rid of that risky investments you've had in the first place and solely focus on Bitcoin. Plus, with its bare asset nature, it's also incredibly easy and secure for the National Bank to hold on its balance sheet, where they would not need to trust a third party. They could set this up themselves. And just like we store the gold bars in the vault in Bern, we could potentially store hardware wallets or multi-sig wallets in the National Bank as well. Then to the geopolitics. There is a huge potential for risk mitigation if you actually focus on Bitcoin. Why? See, Switzerland on a political stance the last few years also took part in the sanctions. This was unheard of because Switzerland always took a very neutral stance in its politics. We actually have to do this by our constitution. It's written in law. However, due to the financial pressure you had to basically oblige by these implementations and these blocks to not lose any business. It's sort of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you want to do it to not lose economical power. On the other hand, it's hurting you politically. If you were to implement Bitcoin, with Bitcoin being neutral, it's not censorable. Bitcoin, therefore, is a neutral asset and would also empathize that neutrality. If you could then use this boost, because you would gain a lot of attention, you would be the first major Western country to actually adopt Bitcoin as a strategic reserve currency. And if you already use a neutral currency, you would also have to stay neutral from a political standpoint. Thanks to Bitcoin's appreciation of roughly 45% on average each year, you would also not need to worry on the financial risks if you do this, because at the end of the day, the store of value function is there, and with the hard cap of 21 million, the coin would appreciate in the long run continuously when the demand is high, of course. So having Bitcoin on the balance sheet could help the politics in the country itself and give it back its form and state of being a neutral country, both financially speaking and from a politics perspective. And then we have to get into the tech, of course. You would actually encourage technological advancements. Switzerland is actually already known for this. We have the infamous crypto valley in Zug, which has a lot of these altcoin and crypto projects on there. But if you would actually follow pursuit with good regulation, which we already have in Switzerland, it enables a lot of this growth and this innovation in this sector. But following that up as a national bank and as a country itself, not only giving the laws and saying you can do this with a business context, but also following pursuit and actually adopting the best currency out of that market, you would actually gain a lot of attraction, and I'm sure a lot of business would come in and drive to Switzerland, potentially opening up more jobs on the job markets and increasing demand and economical output there. And if I already talk about economics and business, the last point is obviously quite clear. You would attract new businesses, you would set up new hubs within Switzerland where Bitcoin companies such as ourselves, we are a Swiss-based Bitcoin companies, would establish itself, with a new market being built in this regard. Because if you have the national bank, the banks would also follow, they would also adopt Bitcoin. You would create a new field of experts that are Bitcoiners and that are needed, and you would attract new capital into the country as well. Switzerland has always been ahead of the curve, and now thanks to Bitcoin, it has the possibility again to make that a reality, not only in politics and finance, but therefore also to actually secure a future for its citizens and the currency itself, if they decide to back the Swiss franc with it. We already see this in the canton of Bern, my home canton where I come from, where we had a key vote on actually taking a closer look at Bitcoin mining and how to mine Bitcoin with excess energy. That can then move into having Bitcoin on the balance sheet of the canton, so it's on the state level, and that's then into the federal level where you actually put it on the central bank's balance sheet. But what do you think? Is this realistic? Should Switzerland actually set up a strategic Bitcoin reserve, or are we thinking too far ahead? Let me know in the comment below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.